Hello everyone, welcome to Jigyasa. I'm Davashmita. So in this particular video, we are going to cover about the human health and diseases. So particularly in this particular lecture or particular session, we are going to cover about the drugs. What is drugs? Okay, and what are the use and abuse of the drugs and dependence, then factors that are affect the drug action. So mainly we first talk about the some of the human health and the diseases, because human body is so much favor of the diseases. Okay, it may be it suffers from bacterial disease and fungal diseases, also viral diseases. So all the diseases, it may be in the next class we are going to cover about the human health and the different types of the diseases also. So first things, in the particular session we are going to cover about the drugs. Okay, let's proceed. What are the drugs and how could we it use or abuse in our human health, or how can it help for the human diseases. Okay, so let's proceed about the drugs. So first things, what is drugs? Okay, we just normally called as the any symptomatics or asymptomatics. So whenever we some affected very much, or something that in our body that changes in our body's normal movement, that's are highly infected by any of the diseases, like small or large diseases, or anything else that is the human disease, like viral, bacterial, many of the infections. So we just take some medicines and some agents or therapeutic agents, that's called, normally we just called as the drugs. Okay, so what is the definition of the drugs? What is the definition of the drugs? So any substances or other than the food, because we just intake in our daily life as a food, different kinds of the foods, vegetables. Okay, so any substances that other than the food used in the prevention, diagnosis and alleviation, treatment or the cure of a disease in case of the mans and the animals is called as the drugs. So what is the definition of the drugs? That is anything else that other we just take, or any substances that we take other than the food. Okay, it prevents some disease, or it diagnosis, or it elevation, or it treatment or cure of that particular disease in case of the human beings and also animal, then we just call as the drug. A drug may also be defined as a chemical that which, when taken in some way, alters the body functions for the benefit of the person. Because any chemicals, or we just normally called or identify or defined a drug, maybe it may be a chemicals that which, when taken and some ways, alter the body functions for the benefit of the particular persons. So we just call it the drug. So this is otherwise known as, commonly called as, the medicines or the therapeutic agent. Okay, so this is the definition of the drugs. So addictive drugs, what is addictive drugs? An addictive or the habit, addictive means, it means the habit or habit forming. So anything the that particular drugs that any person or the person that becoming addicted with that particular drugs, this is called as the addictive drugs. So an addictive or the habit forming drugs is a substances that modifies the biological, psychological or the social behavior of a person by stimulating, depressing or distorting the function of the body and the mind. So anything else that whenever we just habituated, or something else that is we just habituated, if that particular action or that particular habited or that particular habituated things that we could not get in that particular time, then we just disturb, or we just stimulate, or we just getting depressing, or getting for the depression. So this is the addictive drugs in that particular sense. addictive drugs also, and it's a habit forming drugs if any substances that modified, and it is directly related to biological, psychological, or the social behavior of a person. So by stimulating some depression or some distorting the function of the body, or directly in case of the mind. Okay, so this is called as the addictive drugs. Then what is addiction? Addicts, sometimes we just call it that human beings are addicted for that cases, yeah, with that particular work or that particular things. Okay, so addiction is means habitual, habituated, and psychological and some physical dependence on a substances or a practice which is beyond the voluntary control. A person who is habituated to a substances or a practice, especially a harmful ones, that is called the addict. Someone like it's smoking, it's a addiction, or drinking, it's example of the addiction. So it is habituated. Okay, it is habituated. So addiction is basically, we just call habitual actions. It may be psychological, it may be physiological, depends on the substances or anything that practices in our daily lives. So this is called as the addiction, that or which may cause the harmful for our body. So this called addict. Then use and abuse of the drugs. What is the use and the abuse of the drugs? So taking a drug for a medical purpose that to treat body's disorder or injury is known as its use. Basically, we just use a medicines or the drugs for our better the treatment of our different types of the diseases. Okay, for the curement or of the diseases. So disease or anything an injury in our body, so then this is called as the use of the drugs. Intake of a drug for a non-medical purpose or and its amount, strength, manner, or frequency that impairs the physical and the mental function is called as the abuse. That is the wrong actually. So improper or the injurious use or a misuse, this is called is it abuse. So a person who takes a drug for the non-medical use is called the drug abuser. So anything else that help to our or help for treatment of our diseases in our body, so this is called as the use of the drugs. And whenever there is it's used in non-medical purposes, but it addicted or it misuse or some improper ways, and that was wrong for us, then this is called as the abuse. And anything else, a person who takes the drug non-medical use, then this is called as the drug abuser. So clear about that use and the abuse of the drugs. So the term abuse with respect to the drug implies the three aspects. So basically the abuse it maybe comes under the three aspects, that is the non-prescribed use, the non-medical use, and third one is the use for having pleasure. So the abuse actually depends on depends upon their uses, and then it categorized into three types. One is non-prescribed, because sometimes we have seen that any things that directly someone directly purchased some particular medicines from the medical shop without any prescribed from a specialist or any doctors or any things that directly in that doctor particularly. So these are called as the non-prescribed use. Then non-medical use, something like the drugs, sugar, the brown sugar, that are called the non-medical use. And use for having pleasure, something like that gives some pleasure, then makes a human most of the cases the human beings used for their pleasure. So these are called are the categorized into three types. So then comes to the common feature of the drugs abused by addiction. So what are the common features of the drugs that are mainly used in case are abused by the addiction? So the abusal drugs have certain common features. So these are given like they are used without the physician prescription. Most of the cases we have seen that someone like they purchases some medicines in our medicine store or a medicine store without the prescription or without the prescribed by any physician. Okay, so they are to be taken frequently or regularly. um, they are habituating or the habit forming substances. They are mostly if affect the brain and they alter the consciousness, perceptions or the behavior. So these are the common features of the drugs that are mainly used in by addiction. So they give you temporary pleasure. They are often obtained and taken secretly. So these are the common feature of the drugs that are mainly abused actually by some addicts. So next comes to the next, that is the drug dependence. What is drug dependence? Something like that. Drug dependence, it means the certain drugs are prescribed by some physician for the prevention or for the treatment or something like that, the diseases, or for increasing the physical and the mental performance, and are withdrawn as soon as the desired effect of the achieves. So drug dependence actually depends upon the it is directly prescribed by some physicians or for the prevention or the for the treatment of the any of the diseases, and increase the physical and the mental ability or the mental performance, and are withdrawn as soon as the desired effect some achieved. It means then comes to the repeated use of certain drugs on a periodic or the continuous basis may make the body dependent on them. Actually sometimes we just have seen we just see we seen that the many of the cases someone like that if there is a bad stomach stomach pain, then they are use of medicines, because this is addicted, and this is addicted for the better curement or the earlier curement or of that particular like uh, stomach pain. So these are some drug dependence. Actually mentally we just think about the no, this is whenever we take some medicines for that particular cases, then it may be cured. So it depends upon the dependency of that particular drug. So this is called the drug dependence. The term drug dependence is nowadays preferred to drug addiction or the drug habituations. According to the WHO, that is the World Health Organization, in 1964. So we in nowadays we just called as the drug dependence, otherwise called as the drug habituation or the drug addiction. Okay. So some people started taking drugs without medical advice due to one reason or the other and become the drug dependent. So many of the most of the cases some people started taking drugs without the medical advice, or they regularly used that particular drug and they get addicted for and they become drug dependent. Okay. So what are the implication? So what are the implication of drug dependence? That is some regular almost daily intake of that particular drug due to craving, that is the intense desire for it. So then comes to next, that is the development of the tolerance to the drugs and appearance of withdrawal symptoms on the leaving its intake. So we what is the implication we see about the implication of the drug dependence in whenever we use some daily basis or intake some daily basis of that particular drugs due to some craving, and some things like that, the development of the tolerance of that particular drug, and its appearance of the withdrawal symptoms on the living in its intake. And then comes to next, that is the inability to decrease the use of the drugs, because whenever it addicted, then you cannot be removed easily for that addictions. Okay. So then continuation of the drugs intake in spite of the its harmful effect, because we know that everything else, that is whenever we take in particular region, then it's a certain time, for certain time, but it is not for the continuation of that particular drug. Okay, so it may cause some harmful effect in our body. So ignoring other life activities and interest, and it has some psychological effects also, and physiological effects it have, but it's also have the psychological effects in our body, because anything this like voice, our life activities, playing, singing, everything else that may affected, and some likewise some interest are also quite slowed down. Okay, so these are some implication of the drug addiction or the drug dependence. So what are the types of drug dependence? So it is of the two types. One is psychological and physical or the physiological. So there is two types of drug dependence. First one is the psychological. First, this is the first one. This is the psychological, and the second one is the physical or physiological. So, what is the psychological dependence? It means what is the effect of the psychology? What is the drugs that affect in a psychological dependence? Okay, so it refers to the person's belief that the normal state of well-being can be attained only with the drug's action. So psychologically, whenever we give some situation to our brain, then the brain also act that like that, whatever given that particular situation also. Okay, so whenever we think about the no, that disease is particularly cured after taking of that particular drugs or the particular medicine, then it may be some normal disease also, and some viral infection ho, yeah, this is maybe bacterial infection ho. So it's depend upon the psychological dependence. Okay, if that person is believe, then it could be that normal state also be getting complex or complicated, and without taking that particular drug action. Okay, so this is called as the psychological dependence. Then comes to the physical or the physiological dependence. What is physical or the physiological dependence? It means it refers to that the person's state when intake of a drug becomes essential to maintain the physiological equilibrium. Because whenever any injury or in a large amount of an injury or something that is like very harmful to that particular body, then it's dependable, totally depend upon the drugs, or physically or to fully dependent upon the that particular drugs for the cure. In such cases, the nervous system functions normally in presence of the drug only. The physical dependence is therefore called the neuroadaptation. So this is otherwise called as the physical dependence is therefore called as the neuroadaptation. It means ki something that adaptation by the neurons. Okay, then this is called as the neuroadaptation. Then comes to the stages that are leading to the drug dependence. What are the different stages that mainly leads for the drug dependence? A person becomes a drug dependent through the following stages. First thing, whenever we talk about the different stages of that mainly leads for the drug dependence, first comes that is the experimental use. What is experimental use? It means he first take a drug for curiosity. Okay, first things anything because he or that particular human beings don't know how it's mainly used, or for anything that first he experimented, do some experiment of that particular drugs. uh, after think after the intake of that drugs, he think about the after the intake of that drugs, so what is the result. Okay, what is the result and what is the side effect of particular drugs. Okay, Then after the experimental use, he just recreational use. What does mean recreational use? It means then he starts using the drug for so called the pleasure. It gives some pleasure to that particular cases or particular human beings. So then he should gradually use for sometimes like first he take for curiosity, after they recreational use or for use for the pleasure. Then comes to third, that is the situational use. Situational use, it means after this he joined the company for the drugs abuser and begins to take drug more often, because in that cases he already get addicted for that particular drugs. Okay, so this is called the addiction or the then compulsive use, it means now the use of drugs become compulsory for him. Without that particular drugs he cannot live. Okay, because of it's both mentally and his in that particular cases this drug is very much important for their or very much affect their living system. Yeah, it's a living lifestyles. Okay, so it is very much essential for that particular persons. Okay, then comes to last stage, that is the dependence. Dependence means finally he become habitual to drug use and cannot leave it. His daily dose to get the desired effect increase with time. So these are the some stages of drug dependence. Mainly these are six stages, sorry, five stages, and these are the mainly use, or these are the main leading stages for the drug dependence. Okay, then it comes to early warning sign of the drug dependence. What are the different sign that given or the side effect of drug dependence? So parents and the physicians should carefully note the initial stage of the drug dependence to nib avail the bird. Okay, how can we just find out the person, so that person getting to be addiction of that particular drugs? So mainly we just counseling that particular person, or some parents or the physicians should carefully notice their activity. Then we just find out that that person is going to be some drug dependence. Okay, so the important early warning signs are listed below. So what are the important early warning signs? Let's see about what are the different important sign, important early warning. So first things, that is academic deterioration as indicated by the poor performance in the class and the examination, because he always disturbed or always thinking about that particular drugs, because he already already addicted for that particular drugs, and he want to came to know about if the where this drugs is available or not, or how could he find out, or how could he getting that particular drugs. So he always disturb about that for thinking about that particular drugs. Okay, so it's that's why it's giving the poor performance in case of the in their classes or any examination. Then comes to second, that is the evasion of the family duties and the responsibility. He cannot he could not do or could not complete their duties or the some responsibilities. Okay, then comes to changes in the behavior, such as the telling lies, violence, moodiness, all those things. Then comes to physical changes, such as the red eyes, decreased appetite, vigor, and the weight. These are some symptoms like or early warning signs of the drug dependence, because of their she definitely telling lies, because he's just avoiding all those things, and just keep some separate, or likewise he always want to separate from everything everyone else. Then violence, moodiness, these are some signs. The physical changes like red eyes, decreased appetite, and the vigor, weight loss, and quick changes in the personality and the friend cycle. This is the most early sign or warning sign of the drug dependence, because if any one of any person that getting to be a drug dependence, then he definitely makes his friend circles and grows their friend circles. Then it changes its personality also. So then comes to next, that is the legal problems such as the arrest by the police and for the obtaining and the keeping drugs unlawfully. So these are some warnings, the warning signs of the drug dependence. Okay, so what are the factors that affect the drug actions? Okay, some of the factors that are responsible for the drug actions, likewise, when the drugs taken orally, then it absorbs into the blood, so where there are level increases, and the blood carries them to the body tissues, organs such as the muscles, the liver, lungs, brains, etc., in all the body parts. Okay, then thereupon drugs produce their effect on the body. So the effect depends upon the following factors, like the drug taken and it form like the crude or the purified. Then comes to the dose, that is the quantity of that particular drugs, of the drug consumed, how much we take in a single time. It may be some ml, it may be some one drugs or one tablets, like all these things. So the route of the taking the drugs, oral, intramuscular or the intravenous injection, or the drinking or the smoking. So it may be some different kinds of the routes, something like the oral, it may be oral or intramuscular or intravenous injection, or drinking or smoking. So different parts of, or different types of the routes for the taking the drugs. And it may be some period over which drugs is consumed, it may be quickly or it may be slowly, it's depend upon that particular dose actually. Then drug abuser susceptibility, so the drugs abuser, they are getting susceptibility also. So these are the factors that affect the drug actions. So I think all of you guys to know something new about the drugs. So in this particular session, or in this particular classes, we just cover the introductory part of the drugs. In the next topic, we just going to cover, we are going to cover about the type of habituating drugs. It may be different types of the, it may be some psychotropic or psychedelic drugs. So these are actually in the next video we are going to cover about the types of the habituating drugs. Okay, so okay, then मिलते हैं नेक्स्ट वीडियो में. ओके, थैंक यू.